Good evening. Welcome to this live broadcast of our virtual Charter Commission meeting. The meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota statutes, section 13D.021, due to the declared local health pandemic. My name is Barry Clegg. I'm the chair of the Charter Commission. I'll now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Abbott. Commissioner Cohen.
Here.
Commissioner Garcia.
Present.
Commissioner Ginder.
Present.
Commissioner Giroux Isaacson.
Here.
Commissioner Kozak. Commissioner Lickness. Commissioner Metke. Commissioner Newborn.
Here.
Here, somebody keeps unmuting.
Commissioner Perry.
Here.
Hello.
Commissioner Rubenstein. Commissioner Abbott. Commissioner Sandberg.
Here.
Commissioner Schwarzkopf.
Present.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Abbott. Commissioner Kozak.
Here.
Commissioner Lickness. Commissioner Metke.
Here.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
This is Kozak. Can you hear me?
Here.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Kozak. Thank you, Commissioner Rubenstein. Chair Clegg.
Here.
Can you hear me?
We have 13 members present.
So we
This is
have a
Commissioner
quorum.
Abbott.
We can hear you, Commissioner.
Thank you. This is Kozak.
Commissioner
Could you
Clegg?
please say it?
Was that
Could you please
Commissioner
send me-
Lickness?
I also have Commissioner Abbott,
All right, we're going to go
And-
ahead and proceed.
so that's 14 members present. Thank you.
We'll proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's Legislative Information Management System, which is available at lims, L-I-M-S, .minneapolismn.gov. Commissioners, the agenda for today's meeting is before us. Before we adopt the agenda, I will propose that we put some limits on tonight's public hearing. We have around 50 people who have signed up to speak. Commissioners, could you, if you're not speaking, could you please mute your phones? We're getting a lot of background noise. We have about 50 people who've signed up to speak, and in order to make sure we hear from as many people as possible, I'm going to suggest limiting public hearing to 1 minute per speaker. This is consistent with what we did for the City Council proposed amendment, and to receive up to 2 hours of public testimony. With 1 minute per speaker and 50 speakers, it will take less than 2 hours. I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda with those additional parameters I just outlined. Is there a motion?
Testing, I should be muted.
So moved. Perry. Second, Schwarzkopf.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Abbott.
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen.
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia.
Aye.
Commissioner Ginder.
Aye.
Commissioner Giroux Isaacson.
Aye.
Commissioner Kozak.
Aye.
Commissioner Lickness. Commissioner Metke.
Aye.
Commissioner Newborn.
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
Aye.
Commissioner Sandberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Schwarzkopf.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Lickness. Check lag.
Aye.
There are 14 ayes and 1 absent.
That motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the chair's report, and I have nothing to report other than what is in the substance of our agenda tonight. So we'll now proceed to the main item, which is a public hearing on the Charter Commission's proposed possible charter amendment relating to minimum police staffing levels. You will recall this amendment was proposed at our last meeting and was moved forward to public hearing. The Charter Commission has not adopted this proposed amendment yet. We are having a public hearing in order to gather public input before considering whether or not to adopt this proposed amendment and move it forward to the ballot. Again, about 50 people have signed up tonight, and a few ground rules to ensure that we're able to hear from as many as we can. First, each speaker will have 1 minute, which will be managed by the clerk. If any speaker exceeds their 1 minute limit, I will kindly let you know that your time is up and we'll move on to the next speaker. I will also ask that those who are testifying tonight avoid repetition in your comments if you can. Again, we want to maximize the number of people we hear from. If you're in support of other comments already made, feel free to say that if you like. You don't have to repeat them verbatim. Next, I have a request for those who have called into tonight's meeting. To help our staff manage the people that would like to speak, we encourage everyone who is not waiting to speak, leave the call, and to monitor the meeting either online or on TV. I'll remind folks that the meeting can be heard from Comcast channels 14 or 799, CenturyLink channels 8001 or 8501. It's also live streamed on the city's website at minneapolismn.gov/counciltv or from the city's YouTube channel at youtube.com/City of Minneapolis. For those who do plan to speak, I encourage you to leave the call after you've completed your comments and to monitor the remainder of the meeting via one of the other methods if possible. You may also submit written comments to councilcomment without a space at minneapolismn.gov. Again, that's councilcomment at minneapolismn.gov. These comments will be incorporated into the record. I'll now open the public hearing to receive public comment on the Charter Commission's proposed possible charter amendment related to minimum police staffing levels. We will call the speakers by name from the order of speakers list that has been shared to all speakers who have signed up. When you hear your name, and this is important, please press *6 to unmute your phone. Then please wait for a message that says you've been unmuted and identify yourself before making your comments. We've had occur in prior public hearings that people just start talking and then it doesn't kick in until the recorded message telling them that their phone is unmuted has been heard. So it sounds like people get cut off. So please wait for the message that says you've been unmuted. So the first speaker on our list today is Priscilla Mayowa. Press *6 to unmute. Priscilla Mayowa. The next speaker is Kent Mori. Kent Mori. The next speaker is Hannah Kaplan-Hartlaub.
Hi, I'm Hannah Kaplan-Hartlaub.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I support the original amendment language that was put forth by the City Council that will allow us to vote to eliminate the MPD. because I know the police have not and do not and will never keep us safe. I also just want to remind everybody that this amendment is the first step in our city's journey towards community safety. It's not like the be-all, end-all solution, and it really doesn't need to be. We have the resources and expertise within our city to create the solution, and it is certainly not on you, the Charter Commission, to do so. I'll also add that if you block this amendment as written by our city council, you're blocking the democratic process and you're exposing yourselves as like unelected officials paternalistically attempting to make policy decisions on our behalf. Our city councilors represent us and you do not. The people of Minneapolis know what's good for our communities. If you do not do your job and allow us to decide with a vote in November, we will still eliminate the NPD. Thank you.
And the next speaker is Chuck Turchik.
Chuck Turchik, Ward 6. Hello. Suppose you had a teenage son whom you wanted to hold accountable for his behavior, but you lived somewhere where by law you could only hold him accountable by grounding him, and you could only ground him one time in every 4-year period. That is the difference between elected so-called accountable officials and appointed officials such as yourselves. I take great offense to a city council member pointing out that they were elected and are therefore accountable, and you weren't elected and should therefore know your place. That is a silly, uninformed, and arrogant comment. I stand by what I wrote you. First, yes, this proposal is way too rushed, but it should still be on the ballot. Second, democracy is increased when there is more than one candidate, whether that be an individual or a proposal on the ballot. And third, to avoid confusion, your proposed ballot language must clearly distinguish your proposal from the council's proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Neil Urbanski.
Hello, this is Neil Urbanski. I live in Ward 6. Thank you again to the commissioners for the opportunity to speak. I kind of want to echo what the first two people said. This is nothing other than an overt attempt to preserve the Minneapolis Police Department. You're introducing a competing amendment proposal that could easily be construed by voters as being one or the other, and there's a chance that neither passes. It makes it clear where your bias on this issue lies and who your friends are. Choosing to insert yourselves into this fray in a very meaningful way is a blatant political maneuver, especially given how little actual publicity this proposal has received. It's like you're trying to sneak it through. How can you approach this public hearing in any sort of unbiased way? Because it's clearly what you want, and it's not right for you to throw this on the ballot at your own discretion. We're not sitting here talking about amending the way the park board holds meetings. This is way bigger than that, and it calls into question the validity of your role in the other amendment. By taking a stand here, you stepped out of line, plain and simple.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kyle Wilson.
Hi, Kyle Wilson from Ward 12.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say during this entire process, we've had a lot of comments both from the charter commissioners and the small minority that's opposing the city council's proposed amendment that says, you know, all the language is too confusing or that we're going too fast. I don't understand how the charter commission introducing its own amendment doesn't create more confusion or muddy the waters further. How is an unelected commission able to introduce its own ad hoc legislation? I think that's really absurd, and you have no accountability. So what I'm asking is, we don't want this amendment proposed by the current commission. We want the city council's proposed charter amendment. They were elected, they represent us, and we just want an up and down vote this November. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Michelle Gross. Michelle Gross. Thank you. The next speaker is Tony Scallon.
I'm Tony Scallon. I assume you hear me.
We hear you. Go ahead.
I live in the Longfellow Howe neighborhood. What I'm speaking against and reminding the commission that elected officials have a duty, and appointed officials, to sort through the many comments. There seems to be an organized group of folks who are even creating phone banks. It almost seems I hear a lot of echoing. They are calling and organized to call in, and it is for senior citizens, which I am. We can't quite compete with that, but we can with emails. And if you noticed, we did a fairly good job with emails, and so we oppose both the amendments. The senior caucus in Minneapolis has passed a resolution that I've sent opposing this. The important thing is, what will the city council do?
Thank you. The next speaker is Steve Kramer.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Steve Kramer, Ward 11. Thanks to all of you for your work on this issue, but I urge you, both respect to the proposal before you now and the proposal forwarded by the City Council, to not adopt the approach, let's change the charter now and hope for the best later. At this point, there is no justification for an action as significant as a charter change. There is no specific approach to public safety on the table that necessitates a change. In fact, the focus on a charter change for the sake of charter change has distracted us from fundamental first questions. What is the proper role of law enforcement in relation to other safety strategies? And how can we make the practice and culture of law enforcement more just and trusted? We're not even having the right conversation as a community at this point. If the Charter Commission takes the time you are able to take for continued needed study, you can help create a reset moment so we can go back to where we should have started talking in the first place, and I urge you to do so. Thank you again for your time and work on this issue.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Paula Black. Paula Black, press *6 to unmute. Okay, the next speaker is Jeffrey Strand. Jeffrey Strand. Okay, the next speaker is Sylvia Ilsgel. Sylvia Ilsgel. Okay, the next speaker is Jamin Timpidis. Jamin Timpidis. Okay, the next speaker is Nicholas Tiso.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
All right, I'm a resident of Ward 10. I believe the future of the Minneapolis Police Department should be up to the voters to decide through the democratic process, which is why we deserve the right to vote on the amendment to remove the MPD from the charter and create a new Department of Community Safety. We won't settle for smaller reforms or a different amendment from the Constitution. I also think it's important that the Black community be involved in this process beyond calling in one at a time for 60 seconds to a meeting. It's important we don't simply move around the police to another department or call it by another name without fundamentally dismantling and defunding its systematically racist and oppressive nature. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jesse Glaze. Jesse Glaze. Okay, the next speaker is Kased Evans.
Hi, this is Kased. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
I want to voice my support for changing the charter, but as submitted to you by the Minneapolis City Council. I support the language of the original charter amendment, not the watered down version that you proposed last meeting. I strongly believe that we must disband the MPD and think critically about how to create a public safety system that truly protects and serves everyone. I am personally deeply inspired by the possibilities put forward by Black Visions Collective, Reclaim the Block, and MPD 150. But I know not everybody agrees with me. And that's even more reason to let the city vote in November. Minneapolis has the democratic right to decide together how the future of safety in Minneapolis works. But the current city charter and the watered down amendment that retains the MPD that you proposed last meeting keeps key options out of the debate. The debate and the change that will follow cannot wait. Our neighbors are being oppressed, brutalized, and murdered by the MPD. We will not stand by for you to do your job. You need to do your job now and let us vote in November.
Thank you. The next speaker is Aaron Thompson. Aaron Thompson. Okay, the next speaker is Joseph Klein. Joseph Klein. Again, press *6 to unmute. Next speaker is Benjamin Gartner. Benjamin Gartner. The next speaker is...
Hi.
Hi. Who is this? The next speaker is Eric Moan. Hello.
Hi, this is Eric.
Eric, go ahead, please. We can hear you.
Hi, I'm a student living in Ward 10. I'd like to start this by stating my amazement at the audacity to submit a separate proposal to city councils that attempts nothing to create any lasting change on the oppressive police within the city. To see the unelected charter commission drag their feet shows that this unelected body is staffed entirely with affluent white boomers. This charter commission submitting a weak effort to rail change shows that you were not present during MPD's week-long tear gassing assault on the neighborhoods we reside in. We need to abolish MPD and create investment and care for our community, and this needs to be created by the people. We support the city council's proposal, and I don't want the charter commission's proposal going forward. I want city councils.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker is Adam Barrett.
Good evening. This is Adam Barrett.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak and willingness to listen. I'm a lifelong Minneapolitan and current board chair for the largest public high school in our city, while also working in commercial real estate as a fiduciary for employers downtown. As you know, building something takes a lot of time, research, funding, and coordination. The City Council established their original charter amendment, which led to the one that we discussed today. The inherent flaw in both is rooted in an assumption that the City Council must control MPD and/or the entire MPD structure must be drastically defunded for impactful equity and change. The resulting problem is we do not know if this is true. At best, we face a dangerous outcome, and at worst, a devastating blow to our most vulnerable communities in tax revenue, resulting from the fear and uncertainty accompanying no plan or strategy existing beyond a change to the charter. I urge the Charter Commission to table any recommendation on amendments until the City Council offers an alternative to our safety and security apparatuses for you and voters to consider. Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is William Cadwallader.
Oh, wow. Pronounced it correctly. Yeah. Hello, this is William Cadwallader. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. William Cadwallader, Ward 7. This is my first time ever attending a city meeting, and I'm doing so because I feel it is important for city's residents' voices to be heard. For the record, I stand in support of the words of Hannah, Neil, Nicholas, Chesed, and Eric. The phrase is not one bad apple can easily be removed, but one bad apple spoils the whole bunch, and the MPD's bunch is spoiled. Please recall the Charter Commission amendment and allow us to vote on the language used in the City Council's proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Kendra Strode, I'm sorry. Kendra Strode.
Hello, this is Kendra.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Hello, I'm Kendra Strode, homeowner in the Field neighborhood, Ward 8, a volunteer with ACLU. In the 24 or so minutes since this call began, I actually had to look up the difference in these amendments because I quite honestly did not realize that the alternate amendment had been proposed, which highlights the confusion that would likely arise by approving both for the ballot. So with that in mind, I hope these numbers and titles are correct. I agree with those before me who speak in opposition to this minimum police staffing levels amendment, CH 2020-00020, and I support approving the proposed charter amendment related to community safety and violence prevention, CH 2020-00014 for both this November. I hope to speak with you all again tomorrow at 6 p.m. and I do thank you for the time that you've set aside for this council commission position.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Shannon Puchner.
Hi, my name is Shannon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
I live in the Kingfield neighborhood, and I am calling to support the original charter amendment, not the amended version. 15 years ago, it would have been unfathomable to me to suggest defunding the police, but almost 15 years ago, I witnessed the killing of a young Black man, Dominic Felder, at the hands of police. He was experiencing a mental health emergency, and his family called 911 for help, which was slow to arrive. Meanwhile, he was acting erratically in our yard. We were frightened and we called 911 because we're white and we believed it would help. The police responded to our white phone call very quickly and shot him to death. He did not receive the help that his family needed. The next day, his mother cried and sang and prayed in my yard until she lost her voice as I held my infant son, knowing that I would never have to fear that he would be killed by police. After his death, reforms were promised, but it has been 15 years and the tragic situation has not changed. Reform is a failure. We need to change the charter to the original amendment.
Thank you. The next speaker is Christine Dolph. Are you there?
Hi, this is Christine. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hi, great. Thanks. My name's Christine Dolph. I live in Ward 1. I've lived here for 13 years. I think the story of the previous caller just shows why it's so unacceptable that we should be trying to stall or de-water Acton's democratic processes that will let the people speak on this issue and eliminate the MPD. I'm calling in because I want to vote. Straight up, I want to vote on the original amendment proposed by City Council. I don't want a skinny amendment. I don't know what's in yours. That seems hugely undemocratic. And I would say rather than being rushed, this amendment is hundreds of years too late. It's hundreds of years in the making. There have been people studying this issue. We've got to give the city the ability to plan what comes next. And we can only do that if we have the option to vote on this amendment. So I'm asking the Charter Commission to forward along the original amendment by City Council and let us vote. Thanks.
Thank you. The next speaker is Miski Noor. Miski Noor. The next speaker is Yolanda Hare. Yolanda Hare. The next speaker is Travis Hochsprung. Travis Hochsprung or Hochsprung. Remember to press *6 to unmute. The next speaker is Mitchell Hansen. That's Mitchell Hansen.
Hello, can you?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hi, sorry about that. My name is Mitchell Hansen. I'm a licensed social worker from Weber Camden. I officially call on Andrew Kozak to recuse himself. He's known to be a top influencer in the state. He's not an elected official. He's a shaker and a mover. He's exactly what's wrong with our system. Andrew knows exactly what he's doing and is shamelessly lining the pockets of corporate interests that benefit white people and donating money to people who will maintain the status quo. Andrew donated $2,000 to Jacob Frey, who was openly against approving these charter amendments. Andrew snuck in some of the money by his North State advisors, which he is president of. He also donated $3,750 to Barb Johnson to defeat Philip Cunningham. Barb Johnson was a major proponent and supporter of the North Minneapolis spitting and lurking laws, which prohibited waiting or being concealed with intent to commit any crime or unlawful act. So we have one white male who's unelected with his fingers in every bowl and has donated the maximum amount by his circumvention of campaign finance to boost who everything will benefit the clients he lobbies for. Peter Grinder works for the city attorney's office, who is opposed to approving this amendment as well, seeking to vote against his employer, and also Lyle Schwarzkopf, a proud lifelong Republican and blatantly partisan influencer. I feel like this whole commission is absolutely ridiculous and people need to step down. Thank you.
Next is Gregory Makepeace. Gregory Makepeace, are you there? Next is Meredith Webb.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hi, Meredith Webb, Ward 12, speaking in support of the original City Council amendment. I'm a white mother of 2 young sons, and since George Floyd's death, I try to imagine watching my son be crushed under or shot by the body of a police officer who was sworn in to protect and serve us. Somewhat hard to imagine, of course, because this would never have actually happened to my white son. I try to imagine the anxiety of never feeling safe in my home, at the store, anywhere, because there wasn't actually anyone I could call on to help me, that I could die an arbitrary and seemingly inconsequential death at the hands of the state. It's hard for me to imagine personally, and yet I know that no black and brown neighbor of mine should have to live one more day or year under the terror of such a regime. In May and June, the people of Minneapolis rose up to say never again to a murderous and inhumane MPD. We unified in our commitment to deep change, to building a city where our Black and brown neighbors are actually safe, where we are all safe. We demand to be allowed to vote to begin the process of determining a new and different system for public safety without MPD. We know that the police cannot be reformed. You have not been elected and you should not be governing. Do not block a democratic process that empowers our community to speak their voices. Let us vote. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Daphne Brown. Daphne Brown. The next speaker is Mary Slobig.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. My husband and I are residents of Ward 8. We've been living here for more than the past decade. We have experienced our neighbors calling the police when an African-American acquaintance just merely stepped onto our porch. I think that the proposed charter amendment does not go nearly far enough to address police accountability. I think we need to go back to the City Council's original amendment, and I support the proposals by the Communities United Against Police Brutality. I do agree with the removal of the regulation calling for funding of at least 0.0017 employees, but please let us vote. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ruby Erickson.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, this is Ruby Erickson. I live in Ward 3. I want to talk to you today about the concept of justice. When Minneapolis saw injustice in the murder of George Floyd, Minneapolis did not take to the streets to seek vengeance against the individual police officers that enacted their white supremacy on George Floyd's Black body. Minneapolis took to the streets for real justice. Real justice is the elimination of white supremacy by virtue of the elimination of white supremacist institutions. The Minneapolis Police Department is one such institution. As such, the only true just act and the only human response to Minneapolis's cry for change and to George Floyd's senseless murder is the elimination of the MPD and the true reimagination of community safety, which is allowed for only by the originally proposed charter amendment and not by the watered down new amendment. Minneapolis deserves to vote this year because Minneapolis deserves justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Anissa Ali. Anissa Ali. Next is Benjamin Miles.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Miles. I'm a white male and I live in Ward 9 neighborhood in which the residents are predominantly people of color. In just the weeks prior to the murder of George Floyd, I witnessed two incidents that were extremely disturbing to me. Witnessed incidents of police brutality near the transit station at Chicago and Lake. In the first incident, a police officer body slammed a black male and the officer pressed his knee into his back, putting enough pressure to where this person had a seizure and required an ambulance to arrive on the scene. In the second incident, an officer tackled a black male and put his knee into his back and placed handcuffs on him while the other officer pointed a gun 3 feet from the man's head. The man was eventually let go as he had done nothing against the law. And this incident took place in broad daylight, and I witnessed it with my 5-year-old son. Thus, I submit to you that the future of the MPD should be up to the voters of Minneapolis through the democratic process, And I would
this
like
up,
to vote on the
thanks.
original amendment to remove the MPD from the charter and create a new Department of Community Safety.
The
Thank
next
you.
speaker is Teresa Blue.
Teresa Blue.
Go
Can you
ahead,
hear
we
me?
hear you. Yes.
I live in Ward 12 in South Minneapolis, and I feel that so many people before me have better articulated with their stories of unjust, horrific police brutality, and there's nothing else to say except to let us vote. I support the original amendment that was put forth by the City Council, and we need to be allowed to go through the democratic process and not be dictated to by unelected decision makers. We need to have the right to vote on the original amendment. We're not going to settle for smaller reforms or different amendments that you all are putting forward. We are really at risk of repeating history. History I'm hearing, history I'm reading, which Minneapolis has a really troubled past with not listening to the Black and brown communities, actions in the past that have cut through these communities and left scars that we still see today and that we're listening to on this phone call right now. And we cannot allow it any longer. Let us vote.
Thank you. The next speaker is Andy Snow. Andy Snow, press *6 to unmute. Okay, the next speaker is Alex Samuelson. Alex Samuelson. The next speaker is Paul Donovan.
Good evening.
Go
Thanks
ahead,
for
Mr.
allowing me to speak. My name is Paul Donovan. I encourage the City Council, the Charter Commission, and the entire city governance structure to pause and develop a more thoughtful design of public safety, as well as closing one of the highest gaps in inequality in the country. That's in the country. Historically, the city of Minneapolis has done a poor job closing this inequality gap. It is likely attributed to not putting enough thought into this most important issue. Let's not replicate our past mistakes by making a poorly informed decision. Today, what is in front of the Charter Commission is too vague. You are harming the communities you serve with all of this uncertainty. Whether you're a resident or a business owner, questions abound, and it is hurting employers' viability to access capital to run their business, as well as impacting their retention of employees. This is hurting citizens' employment, which is core. This has a cascading effect of increasing our inequality gap. The longer this lingers, the momentum of employers exiting Minneapolis will accelerate. Passing this proposal will increase this. I encourage this. Thank you.
And the next speaker is Jim Meyer.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Jim Meyer, Hale Page, Ward 11. I'm also a volunteer officer of the Street Committee, a citizens forum on crime and safety. We used to meet 6 times a year at the precinct, and we nearly disbanded this year for COVID and this and that, but then we knew we had to get to work fast. We quickly published a questionnaire to our mailing list, CPS emails, block clubs, neighborhood orgs, businesses, community forums. It was pretty wide open. I'll admit it was not a perfect cross-section of the city. They're all printed and published, available. I was nonetheless very pleased with a wide, passionate response within the extremes of people who want total abolition or even more law and order. There was about an 80 or 90% agreement. We need some organizational change and service quality improvement, all kinds of improvement. There was both appreciation expressed and some hard realizations, sometimes within the same letter. There were 2 emerging themes particularly. People really appreciated a voice, a chance to be heard. They feel abandoned and ignored in all of this rapid turmoil and this tension. And secondly, the charter amendment in a sample question went down 3 to 1. but more important, a lot of people were just unsure what it all meant or could possibly mean, and we even linked to the language of it.
Thank you.
Please, there is serious distrust downtown. Let's just slow down and move better together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Bryce Maples. Bryce Maples. Press *6 to unmute. The next speaker is Sharon Sales Belton. Sharon Sales Belton. The next speaker is Anthony Chelbeck.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Oh my goodness.
Who is
Thank
this?
you. This is Sharon Sales Belton.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. The question of redesigning the police department is a major decision that requires broad input from Minneapolis taxpayers. Rather than shut out or shut down public input, the city residents and the board should be welcoming it. Honoring a pledge must not come at the expense of citizen input. In my opinion, the city council has not held one public hearing or invited us to provide our comments. The resolution provided by the city council politicizes the Minneapolis Police Department by making the council, the mayor, and a citizen leader responsible for policing in the city. No one can lead anything with 15 bosses. I've been in these roles, and I'm telling you it can't be done. The city council has not presented a plan for the Minneapolis Police Department. They presented a resolution. My final remark is that the general outline of the vision that they put on the table does not constitute a plan that is ready for public vote. The matter should be on the ballot next year during an election cycle when everyone in the city is focused on municipal elections.
Thank you. The next speaker is Anthony Chelbeck. I think we tried him before. Anthony Chelbeck. The next speaker is Shanta Hejmadi.
This is Shanta. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
This is Shanta Hejmadi, Ward 12. I reside in the 3rd Precinct. I ask that you let us vote on the City Council's original charter amendment proposal and not the amended version. Minneapolis needs to vote on this amendment this November, and we need your immediate action. Allowing Minneapolis to vote is merely the first step in the groundwork to transform our model of community safety. And make no mistake, we need transformation desperately. Minneapolis has a long history of policies that exclude and endanger our Black, Indigenous, and Brown residents. Too many of our neighbors are not safe, and they are made less safe by our current model of policing. The murder of George Floyd in our city sparked a national and worldwide uprising against systemic racism. And you can begin to make things right. You can do it tomorrow. This is a historic moment, and you have a role to play in transforming our society for the better. You owe us the chance to vote on dismantling one piece of the racist system in which we live. The world is watching you. Take action tomorrow and let us vote this November.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Scott Schaefer. Scott Schaefer. Press *6 to unmute. The next speaker is Eric Barstad. Eric Barstad.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, yes, my name is Eric Barstad. I'm a resident of Ward 7. First, ladies and gentlemen of the Commission, I just want to thank you for your time and consideration throughout this entire process. I strongly support allowing voters to vote on the City Council's originally proposed amendment. Provided that that is allowed to happen, I would also support allowing voters to vote on Commissioner Giroux Isaacson's alternative amendment. You know, I think that presenting voters with alternative amendments to vote on this November would enhance the civic debate that we are having and would add to this exercise in self-governance and what it means to try to reassert civilian authority over our police force that we are presently engaged in. If the Commission were to instead substitute Commissioner Giroux Isaacson's proposed amendment in place of the City Council's amendment, I think that would be anti-democratic and disrespectful of Minneapolis voters whose elected representatives unanimously voted to allow them to vote on the original amendment.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Laura Leash. Laura Leash.
Hi, my name is Laura Leash. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Hi, my name is Laura Leash. My husband and I do not support dismantling the police department. We do support ending police brutality and excessive force, firing officers with repeated complaints of excessive force, and making it easy and anonymous for officers to report fellow officers they believe are violating rules. Governor Walz just signed legislation that addressed several of these issues, including prohibiting the use of chokeholds. And that's a good start. There's been an unprecedented surge in violence since George Floyd's death. Over 250 people have been shot, at least 13 fatally. More than 1,500 instances of gunfire have been reported across the city. We need our police to protect us. How can you expect the public to vote on this in November when there isn't even a solid crafted plan of what exactly would replace the police force? I hope that you, as members of the Charter Commission, will not rush this onto the ballot in November. You owe it to your constituents to, at the very least, take the necessary time to review any proposal to amend the city charter to allow for the dismantling of the police. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Jordan Peacock. Jordan Peacock.
Hi, my name is Laura Leash. Can you hear me?
Okay, to the clerk, this is the last, Jordan Peacock was the last one on my list. Are there any new names on the list?
I believe that was the last name on the list.
Thank you. Is there anybody on the phone now who was on the list but was unable to respond when I called their names?
Chair Clegg, Jeffrey Strand.
Go ahead, Mr. Strand. We can hear you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Strand, Ward 4. Former Mayor Sales Belton said it well. I support the Charter Commission fulfilling its independent legal function in city government. The City Council and Mayor already have wide authority with regard to the Minneapolis Police Department and budgeting for same. This has been demonstrated in the 2020 budget revisions. I support the removal of the minimum funding requirement for the police department. As a 30-year Northside resident, I stand alongside my neighbors in the BIPOC community, Black leaders like Al Flowers and Nakima Levy Armstrong, who spoke on this subject earlier. I have concerns about the vague proposal submitted by the City Council. I do support re-engineering public safety in Minneapolis, but it must be thoughtfully and planfully developed, not rushed. The 9 council members who participated in a community meeting without proper notice on limbs most likely violated Minnesota open meetings law. The process has to be transparent.
Thank you.
My time up.
Your time
Thank
is
you,
up.
Chair Clegg.
Thank you. Was there anybody else who wasn't able to respond when called on but was on the sign-up list? All right, that completes the list of registered speakers. So with no further speakers, I will close the public hearing. We will receive public comment tomorrow, a final time on the City Council's proposed amendment. Note that the only eligible speakers in that public hearing are the 54 people who had signed up for the last public hearing, but we were unable to get to. We decided to add this third short public hearing so everyone who signed up would have a chance to speak. I want to thank everyone who participated in this hearing tonight and everyone who spoke or submitted comments. We appreciate your engagement and in this important work that helps move our community forward. With that, we've concluded all business to come before the Charter Commission. So without objection, we stand adjourned to the Charter Commission meeting on Wednesday, July 29th, day after tomorrow at 4 p.m. So we are adjourned until Wednesday, July 29th at 4 p.m. That meeting will also be online and on YouTube and on Minneapolis TV. Thank you, everyone. Please have a good night.